Welcome to the table. There's a place for you. It's been week of prayer at Southwestern Adventist University, and we have been going through, if we can go on to the next slide. Well, I guess we can review real quick if you want. Let's go. You can see where we went this week. How's that? Monday, we asked the question. First, pause. Pastor Anthony, thank you for sharing your pulpit. And Keene Church, thank you for allowing us to be here and to worship each day. We started off on Monday with the simple question. I'm much more comfortable asking questions of Jesus, but this week we've been looking at questions that Jesus might ask us. And so as we looked at those, it started off with the Garden of Eden where God was talking to Adam and Eve, and he's saying, where are you? And it's not about geography, it's about relationship. Where are you in your relationship with me? And then we went on to Elijah, and Jesus asked, what are you doing here? Not in a condemnation way, but he's a reflection and saying, I have more for you to do. And he recalls him. He restores him to ministry after he had run and anoints some kings and gets his protege, Elisha. And then on Wednesday, we looked at who touched me and that Jesus is going after the poor down and out lady as well as the well-connected man. And his whole point was he doesn't want us to bump into him. He wants us to touch and have fellowship, be restored, and have hope. And then on Thursday, we dealt with the one, do you want to be well? And I think these are getting progressively harder because I think sometimes I like being unwell. And he challenges us to have the healing and restoration. And on Friday, we looked yesterday about what are you talking about? And God wants to be involved in our conversation and be a part of it. And last evening, we looked at a question that Jesus didn't ask, but he intended to ask. Are we in love? He asked it this way, do you love me? But instead of saying that, are we in love? Are we in a relationship? And he's longing for that relationship. And then in that relationship, he challenges us to go out and serve others. And then today we're looking at a question, who do you say that I am? The question we read in Scripture just a moment ago was, who do you say people say that I am? That's a pretty safe question, because then you can say whatever you want. When I moved from this church across the street to the university, I was introduced to something that I had not really been a part of before. It's called assessment. It's really exciting. Now, I know that we have implemented some assessment tools for pastors now, and it's a relatively new tool. But on the campus level, it's one of those times where you see the email going out and it says, please evaluate Russ Laughlin, Vice President for Spiritual Life and Development. And I look at that email and I say, I am so excited. I can't wait to hear what people say about me because I'm as self-conscious as all the rest of us. And when I think of myself, I like to think of myself as sometimes better than maybe what I'm really doing. Now, you all aren't like that. I know. I'm just telling you where I'm at. And those emails come back, and then I get to sit with my boss and look over the results. I'm telling you, that table is so much fun. You sit there and you smile and you say, oh, no, I'm nervous in the service when I go in there because I've gotten a report ahead of time, so I know. And I have a confession to make. Somebody at SWAO doesn't like me. Because every year there's one person that puts all ones. I couldn't do any worse. And opens himself up and he says, Matthew 16, if you want to read along, verse 13. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, who do people say the Son of Man is? That's just sort of an easy question to ease into it. why did he get so specific about Caesarea Philippi? Well, Caesarea Philippi is where the mouth or the headwaters of the Jordan River start. It's in the mountains. There's waterfalls. It's beautiful. Have you been around waterfalls? There's something that just is peaceful and reflecting. And Jesus is sitting there with his disciples, and he says to them, "Who do people say that I am?" And the disciples play it safe. How do I know? Read it. They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others Jeremiah or one of the other prophets." Really? Nobody called him Beelzebub? They don't say any of the stuff that the Pharisees were saying about him. He's a fraud, he's a phony. They only pick ones that are sort of nice, which is cool. And Jesus listens, and then he says to them, "Okay, Nate, what about you? Who do you say that I am?" And of all the questions that we looked at this week, I think this one's the hardest. Oh, you know the answer. Peter says, "Hey, you are the Messiah, the Son of God." And we all stand up and say, "Peter, you're the man." And then we misunderstand the next couple verses. He said, "Blessed of you, Simon, son of Jonah, for this was not revealed to you by man, but by the Father. And I tell you, Peter, that on this rock I'll build my church, and the gates of hell will not overcome it." In that passage, I almost went to Luke's or Mark's version of this, because that's not in the process. But I thought that would be chickening out. Because the more that I studied this, the more I realized we have focused so much on the argument of where the comma goes, is it upon you, Peter, and that kind of stuff, and we've missed the whole point. The question is, who do people say I am? Not who Peter is, but who I am. And Peter answers, "You are the Messiah." And then Jesus says, "God gave you that." And then instead of focusing on the rock, I want to focus on a different word in there. Ekklesia. Welcome to Greek class. Ekklesia means church. But it's also translated, maybe better, called out of or called from. And I want to come back to that in just a second, because what I believe is happening in this, when he says, "Who do you say that I am?" and Peter says, "You are the Messiah," he's building the church not so much on where we are called from, but who we are called to. And that changes the meaning of this passage. Follow me along with me. He tells them, "Don't tell anybody that I'm the Christ. That time has not come yet." And then at verse 21, from that time forward, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem, suffer many things at the hands of the elders, chief priests, and teachers of the law, and that he must be killed, and on the third day he would be raised to life. And Peter pulls him aside. "Never, Lord. This shall never happen to you." And you know what Jesus says to him? "Get behind me, Satan." So I don't think this passage is about Peter at all. I believe as we look at this, and if you want, John chapter 6, I think, is an extension of this story as well. We don't have time to unpack all of John chapter 6, but John chapter 6 is the feeding of the 5,000. And everybody is so excited. It's what John calls the apex of Jesus' earthly ministry. It's when the most people are in favor of him. And as the popularity grows, everybody is there, and they eat the bread, they eat the fish, they're so excited. And the next day they come back and they say, "Can we have seconds?" And Jesus could have kept the momentum going. But instead, he says, if you want to follow me, you must eat my flesh and drink my blood. And some of them wanted to take it literally. They got grossed out. They started grumbling and complaining. His disciples start grumbling and complaining. Why is Jesus not capitalizing on the moment? And the reason he doesn't is because he knows who he is. He's not asking the disciples, he's not asking the people to tell him who he is because he doesn't know. He knows who he is. He wants his disciples to know who he is. He wants them to know that his kingdom is better than this earth. His kingdom is deeper than conquering the Romans. His kingdom is deeper than us having a cush Christian life. John chapter 6. Many of the disciples left him that day. And Jesus turns to the 12 and he asks a question that is very, very haunting. Do you want to leave me too? And we're closing week of prayer, and I know it's Elevate, and I know we gave you a rush job to get here. But the question today is, who do you say that I am? And Jesus follows it up with, are you going to stay with me? Do you want to stay with me? When times get tough, are you going to stay with me? Because what Jesus is asking them in this simple question, who do you say that I am? He's asking for fellowship with us. He wants to fellowship. Remember, Emmanuel is the name given at his birth. God with us. And now, 30 years later, it's Messiah. Emmanuel is still real. But now it's Emmanuel, the Messiah, is with us. And he wants his disciples to understand that the Messiah is with us. Oh, this is all Sabbath school. This is all easy stuff. You want to get real? Let's bring this home. Who does your social media say that I am? Who does your bank account say Jesus is? What does my profession say Jesus is? In my personal relationships with people, who is Jesus? You see, we can be theologically correct on all kinds of stuff, but if we do not reveal the character of God and his love for lost people, we are mischaracterizing who God is. And so when Jesus looks at his disciples and says, who do you say that I am? I think it's deeper than verbal. I believe it's lifestyle. What does your life and your lifestyle reveal about who I am? That's what it's about. Because the God of the universe desires to have fellowship with his creation. That is why he created us. And after the fall, it is all about restoration, restoring us into the image of God and providing for us hope. Hope that is found only in Jesus. My neighbor has a bunch of cars. He's got some cars that I would like to have. He has a late 50s Chevy, probably a Bel Air, and he might have another one as well. He's got at least two. He has a 1960, or at least a friend, because he's working on it often, 1960s Impala. Beautiful two-door, sport wheels, nice. And he has a 1970s Cadillac Eldorado. Now, they're all, well, the 60s, the Impala is done. It's good. The others are in the process of restoration. There's primer. There's parts missing. And every time I look, I see he's taken some parts off. He's put some parts on because the restoration process is taking away that which should not be there and replacing it with that which should be there. Does this make sense? Because Emmanuel, God with us, when he asks us, who do you say that I am? He knows that he's the Messiah. He wants us to know it. He wants our life to reveal it. He wants us to have a fellowship with him. But in that process, we call that justification. Okay with God. Fellowship with God. But in the restoration process, we call that sanctification. And it takes time. He spends a lot of time with those cars, sanding, taking parts off, tuning the engine, putting things together. Why? Because he has hope that one day those cars, maybe candy apple red, maybe a baby blue with white, I don't know what color it's going to end up being, but it's going to be a show car. You see, the God of the universe asks, who do you say that I am? Because he wants fellowship with us. He wants to restore us. And he has given us hope. Welcome to the table. There's room for you. There's fellowship at the table. There's restoring that happens at the table. And there's a lot of hope. Join me at the table.